My name is Justin Fitzhugh. I work for Instart Logic. Instart Logic, we'll talk a little bit more about what that company does. We're a small startup in Palo Alto, about 160 people. I run technical operations, so I'm responsible for a lot, prod ops, security, DevOps, corporate IT. I've previously worked at Jive and Macromedia and Mozilla, so that's kind of some of my background. In most of those places, I built up physical data centers. We started to go towards Amazon at Jive, and we're kind of continuing that trend. So kind of my viewpoint is coming from a person who was really kind of a traditional build a data center and moving towards the hybrid cloud. So that's kind of my perspective and the perspective that I'll try to share with you guys tonight. A little bit about Instart Logic. So what are we? We're basically a next generation CDN, but we're more than that. We build on top of that. So we're focused on fast, secure, and easy delivery of your web applications. So we sit in front, we're a transparent proxy. We add a bunch of features and values on top of that. Our focus is really kind of an end-to-end platform. So the difference between us and any other CDN out there is that we have a small piece of code that actually gets shipped as your delivery happens down to the client. So we build kind of a client-server relationship, a little piece of JavaScript that runs on the actual client's machine. And so we can actually understand the transaction from end to end. So we see it, we understand if you're on a mobile phone, we understand if you're on a desktop, and we can optimize the experience based on kind of your individual connection. So really focused around large-scale delivery. Why are people using us? This is kind of the value, right? So on your phone, obviously, you have poor delivery, poor connections. You may be over a cell modem. And our job is really to optimize that, understand what kind of connection you're on and how do we optimize that. Another piece is we're looking basically to help scale your website. So if you have large spikes in traffic or need to move a bunch of traffic or growing really rapidly, using us kind of helps scale that forward. Lastly is the security piece. Given we're actually delivering the content, we can now also actually see what's happening on the client side as well as the server side. And so we can act as both a web application firewall as well as do client-side security. So we have a lot going on. We're delivering quite a bit of traffic. They won't let me share the numbers, but it's significant. Some large customers out there, including Washington Post. We serve every single Kindle download that happens for Washington Post as well as all of their infrastructure and a bunch of other large-scale customers. So let me jump into the problem that we had. So I've been there about 9 months, and I come in, like probably many of you have, into positions, and Amazon's quickly becoming adopted by various different parts of the organization. You see QA, you see engineering, you see ops, you even see sales in our case, kind of picking up Amazon and running with it. And that's fantastic because it's giving a ton of agility and letting us get to market very, very quickly. But there's a problem. Each department's doing their own thing. There's no one's talking to each other. They'll have their own accounts. It's completely separate. Costs are spiraling. This is, again, these legal people. They wouldn't let me put units on here, but this is basically over the last, this is our cost, basically over 4 months, right? So I came in kind of here, and then I talked to CFO kind of here, right? And so there was an interesting conversation that we had, which is, how are we really going to scale this, and are we really using everything we need here? The other part was there was no accountability. Who owns all these servers? What are they doing with them? Are we managing them? Do we have security updates? It's just this sprawling, unmaintained architecture. And through no fault of Amazon, it was really on us, right? Why? Because people were kind of doing their own thing. And that's kind of where you get the stale architectures. And that starts to be an issue long term. And so we said, we kind of have a problem. Like, this is an issue. What are we going to do here? And we have minimal staff. I'm 3 months on the job, and it's like, what do we do? So I do what I've done in my last 3 jobs. I call Jason, and I say, can you come and help? And of course, in they come, Blue Chip and our little superheroes, Colin and Ryan, they come in to help us. But no, let's dig into actually what I was asking for. We were looking for them to come in and bring order from chaos. Kind of, we had this sprawling environment. We needed some help on how do we bring kind of some order, some structure to it. How do we really make sure we bring our costs under control? Because people just didn't understand what they were doing. And they would get instances that were too large or too small. I mean, I think the instance that Jason talked about, we were probably 80% underutilized or 90% even more, right? And nobody knew it. And again, it was through no fault. But we needed somebody to come in and help us analyze this. And again, I didn't have the staff at the time, right? It was a monthly problem. I mean, if you look at this graph, this one, like, again, this is months, right? So you can imagine how this continues to spiral out of control. It's not like it's going to fix itself. The other part was security. with nobody focusing on security in each of these areas, Amazon itself is extremely secure. How you implement it is the key, right? And who you work with and how you actually structure kind of your accounts and how you structure the hierarchy, and you make sure you're actually maintaining that. That's really important. The most important thing is how do we define this long-term strategy? In my opinion, there is a place for physical data centers, there's a place for cloud. You should really be using the right tool for the right job, right? For scale out, infinite, large scale up, scale down workloads, Amazon kills it. You can't touch it, right? And there's some cases for us where we need to be in really network dense locations. Jim from Equity is in the back room. We're a customer of his as well. But that's the best place you want to be if you want really great network connectivity, right? So there's kind of the right tool for the right job. And what we needed was a partner to come and help us really think through this, who's done this before on many different occasions, and help us come up with the long-term strategy that really made sense for the business, both from a business agility point of view, and I'd say that's our primary goal, not cost. Cost is a secondary goal, but obviously almost as important. So what do? We had them come in, and we had both Colin and Ryan actually both helped us. They came in, we started off with 2 or 3 hour initial session, kind of introduced the team, talked through our environment, and within 2 or 3 weeks, we started seeing these cost reductions because we did analysis and he basically gave us a printout. Hey, this machine has used 2%, 5%, 3%. He had all the tools, everything come in and really helped us understand how and where we were overspending. So you saw our stock costs, again, this is over 4 months, start to come back down. We saw it almost immediately. We went and focused on how do we implement a security framework for Amazon? How do we segment the different departments? How do we start deploying secure images? How do we deploy patch sets? All these types of things, right? And it's a lot of things the guys knew, but they may have known it in the traditional world. How do you apply this in a hybrid or a public cloud world? And that was the kind of expertise and the know-how of someone who's been there and done that at extremely large scale that we wanted, because we are growing. Our bandwidth has grown in the last 4 months 8x, right? So we're growing extremely rapidly, and when you're talking about lots of machines distributed across the world in multiple locations, you need to have a framework in place or you're going to get out of control really fast, and it's going to get to a point where you can't actually recover. And then lastly, a clear path forward. So what's our roadmap? How are we going? Where is Amazon going? How do we fit into that? How do we make sure we're best utilizing the technology that's out there and really building a true hybrid cloud? So leveraging our physical assets, but really using the public cloud for what it's really great for. How do we kind of build that strategy? They've also been on call for issues. We've had 2 or 3 occasions where I call Jason or Jessica or Colin or Ryan and say, I need some help right now. And that's been great because Amazon support is fantastic, but sometimes you need someone who really, really knows your environment. And since they had that kind of in-depth knowledge of what we were doing and how we were doing it and what our business goals were, they were fantastic to work with. And then finally, like I said, we talked about the kind of the hybrid cloud model. My model is how do we use these two in conjunction? So how do we use our physical infrastructure in combination with our public cloud infrastructure and build that going forward? Blue Chip's helped us in a bunch of different areas. On the networking side, building out kind of our network architecture, we did when I was at Mozilla, a full switch from Cisco to Juniper, and that was all helped by the technical resources from Jason and Jessica's team. Our physical infrastructure, you've known a lot about shipping to many different countries, so we've kind of utilized them as a whole, but really kind of building out this strategy. And the thing that I value about our business relationship with Blue Chip is really understanding our business, sitting down with people like Darren at the beginning of the quarter and saying, okay, what are your business goals for next year? How are you going to buy? How can we better leverage that? How can we really make that, make the most sense and give you the most amount of value? And focus on business agility, not just cost, but how do you make the business really be great? And I'll end with this, which is really, it's all about trust. I think that it's the one thing I've learned most in this valley, is if you don't have a partner you can trust and you can lean on when stuff gets really, really difficult, it just doesn't work. And so I personally want to say thank you to both of you guys for helping me make this transition over to a new organization. And I'd encourage you guys as well to sit with the technical folks, talk with them, spend an hour, and just kind of do a roadmap, because it's been the only way that I've been able to kind of go through a few different companies and be as successful as I have. So I want to say thank you for that and encourage you guys to do the same. And that's it.
I'm just curious, you're in a hybrid where you're using both private and public. Why both?
I'll use a different scenario so it's not so charged, but say look at Hadoop. Who goes and uses Hadoop for everything? You don't. Use it for cases where you need not instantaneous, you need kind of bulk delivery, but very large scale. So I think to me, it's using the right tool for the right job. And for us, Amazon is fantastic. I can't touch them in terms of scale up, scale down. So we have this thing called image service, which processes a bunch of images on the back end and has this really curve, this really up and down spike in terms of compute, and it's just compute heavy. In that case, I would be silly to buy physical infrastructure to run at that top level, right? Because I'd have so much wasted capacity in the middle there. So I think in that case, a public cloud infrastructure makes tons of sense. Now, for my kind of constant delivery where I need to every bit of performance and I'm running on multiple SSDs and we may actually put GPUs in, for us and we need to be as close to the edge network as possible. In that case, public cloud doesn't make a ton of sense for us. So the goal that I have is, how do I actually combine those two to get the best of both worlds? Because I love Jim and everything at Equinix, but his space is expensive, right? So I don't want to overbuild there. So I don't want to overbuild there and build all this asynchronous image processing, but at the same time, I don't want to give that up because there's a ton of value for what he provides. So what I'm trying to do is basically look at each area of compute and how do I optimize it and then bring them together as one system so that I get kind of the best of both worlds. My advice is, depends on your workload. I mean, sit down with somebody like Colin or Ryan. So I remember I was in the car, I think I was talking, I don't know if it was you or if it was Ryan, but they said, I promise you, I can beat any data center cost in Amazon, 100%. And I said, I don't think so, because I know my costs. And in fact, he probably could, but there was for some use cases, he could blow it away. Other cases, not necessarily, or he could come equal, but there was a bunch of tooling that would have had to happen to spin this up and down, and if we were willing to invest in that, we probably could get there. Now, it just depends on your business priorities, on what's more important, right? I know certain companies like, I hope Pinterest isn't here, but they run all on Amazon, right? And their bill's extremely high, but their business focus is strictly on fast scale and on getting as many eyeballs as possible. So in that case, it's a fantastic platform. So I would say look at the workload and see how it applies and see if it makes sense, and then maybe shift one over. And if you can build the best of both worlds, there's kind of benefits to both, right? And so why lock yourself into one or the other? Fantastic. All right, thank you. Yeah.